All right, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about file paths. File paths are addresses for files. Addresses for files. All right, let's start with an example. Let's say you have an example repo on GitHub called SCBI. And in this repo, okay, you've got a data subfolder. So in the SCBI repo, you might have a subfolder called data with a.csv in it. And maybe there's another folder called images that has, in this case, b.png in it. All right. So remember, this is what you see on github.com. So remember that this is on the cloud or remote. So this is a remote. But then if you clone locally onto your computer, basically you're going to make a copy. So to clone a repo locally is to make a copy. All right. And the idea is, if you're a Mac user, the address of this repo, which is SCBI, and oh yeah, let me do images here. Images, b.png. The address might be something like this. Users, rude boy Bert, /SCBI. Or if you're a Windows user, it might look something like this. C:/users, let's say you, whatever your name is, /SCBI. All right. But note, if you clone as an RStudio project, you'll get an additional .rproj file. .r, whoops, double tap, file. What do I mean by that? Let's take a look at an example. So in our course for Mini Project 2, you used this particular repo. Now, if we go to my version locally, this is as it exists on my computer, all right? There is an rproj file right here. If I double click that, it automatically opens the folder in RStudio project mode. How do I know that? It's because in the top right corner, all right, we see SCBI Forest Geo Data. So we have now opened this in RStudio project mode. Let's go back here. This is the key thing. RStudio projects assume the root folder is the repo folder. What do we mean? What do I mean by root? This is starting point. This is the key. So why don't I even change that to red? All right. What does this mean? Example. Say you want to load a.csv, all right? You want to load that file. if you do something like this, read underscore CSV, all right? What is it? In my case, on a Mac, it's users, rude boy Bert, SCBI, data, slash a.csv, close. Let's say you want to load a CSV this way. This is not going to work on your computer. Why? This will not work on your computer because of this part. Because likely on your computer, this work is going to be saved somewhere else. So when I try to, for example, knit your R Markdown file or recreate your analysis, I will not be able to. This is what we call an absolute file path. It is absolute to your computer. And that is going to affect the reproducibility of your work. And the harder the less reproducible your work is, the less likely people are going to want to use it. Instead, use relative file paths relative to root folder. So this is the key, folks. If you're working in RStudio project mode, it assumes the root folder is going to be this. RStudio assumes files are relative to this root folder in red. And thus you can load CSVs like this. Read CSV : data slash a.csv. You see? Because what's in red here, that's the root folder, but it assumes the starting point is users rudeboybert.scbi. So if you move that work to another computer, like your computer, all the code will still work. This is what's called a relative file path. And relative file paths are more reproducible. Let's go back to the computer. All right. Let's say we want to load, for example, where was that here? Tree main census, data, CSV files. Let's say we want to load that file there. Well, one thing we could do is, well, first I'll load tidyverse. Okay. Well, one thing I could do is I could say the absolute file path. So what is it? I think it's, what is it? Users, is that how it works? No, there you go, users. Oh, there we go. What's my user? Oh, I'm akim4. Then I could go to, what is it? Documents. Then I could go to 390. Then I could go to SCBI forest data. Then I could go to, where was it? In here, tree main census. Then I could go to data. Then I could go to census CSV files, pressing tab. Then I can do that. This is an absolute file path. This is a file path that's only going to work on my computer because I saved it in a folder like this. So this will technically work. But the nice thing is that when I'm in RStudio project mode, it assumes this is the root folder. So instead, I can do something like this. read.csv, what is it called? Tree main census data tab, census CSV files tab. Great. That's going to work too. So again, folks, this absolute file path is only going to work on my computer. But this relative file path is going to work on anybody's computer. And if it works on anybody's computer, it's reproducible. Great. One more little note here. All right. You can also use the here package to set relative file paths. Let's go back to the computer. Watch what happens when I load the here package. Here starts at users AKIM04 documents 390 SCBI forest geodata. This is the root folder that everything is relative to. So now if I do here, it starts at this starting point right here. So I can go to tree main census, tree main census, tab, data, tab, CSV file, tab. That way it'll spell out the entire file path. So if you want access to the entire file path, for example, to read this data, so for example, let me back this up and pipe it into read.csv. This is a guaranteed way to ensure that your work will be reproducible. Great, thank you.